Yeah. Keeping men and equipment moving to the places where they were needed, getting them there on time. It isn't the glamorous side of the job now, but it's just as important as the initial landing. Now let's get my grant report.
Your guess is as good as mine, Chief. I'd like to go into a little grocery business with my father, but I'm afraid I'll have to mend my ways a bit before you have me for a partner.
Well, I don't think you can be that bad, Ellis. Well, thanks for being here today, and the best of luck to you. There it is, Lewisburg, Wisconsin. You've just heard Ellis Voskuil of Lewisburg interviewed here in London by your U.S. Navy overseas report.
Who's he?
His name was Roy Powers, Shorty Powers.
Shorty.
And he was on another LST, and they were practicing at night. And a German submarine sunk 3 of his LSTs. And it blew him right in the water. The next thing he knew, he was in the water. That Shorty Powers, he was the nicest young guy. And I don't even think he was 17 yet. He was just a kid.
Just boys.
So he gets thrown in the water, and somebody picked him up. And after a little rehabilitation, he gets on our ship. And for some reason, he just took to me. And he would not leave me alone. He wanted to be near me all the time. And I was very willing to do whatever I could for him because he was in tough shape.
But that happens in the Army, Navy, whatever you're in.
Sure.
Who is the other gentleman on that photograph with you? You and Shorty. Who is the third one?
Yeah, I think it's. I want to say it's Chiletti, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that one anymore.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good Eastern Italian name.
Yeah, I got to tell you the rest of the story about Shorty.
Yeah.
We stayed together until the ship came back to the U.S. And he left and I left. And I think it was close to 40 years that I looked for him. And I had no record of him. And all of a sudden, one Sunday morning at the windmill, the telephone rings and the operator says, "Are you so-and-so?" I said, "Yeah." "Are you this and that and that?" And I said, "Yes." She said to Shorty, "I think we got your man." And Shorty said he was looking for me for years, just like I was looking for him. Oh, you two.
You were just kidding.
If you think about what we did.
Yeah. Now to do it,
The skipper called, I don't know if it was a skipper, called me and said, "You're going to be oil king." I said, "What's that?" He said, "You're going to take care of all the ballast water, all the fresh water, all the lube oil, and all the diesel fuel. You take care of all the tanks." And boy, there was a pile of them under there. So I had to know what every tank was in these valves. It just goes right around the machine, the engine room. And I had to learn it. And 21 years old, never saw salt water before, never saw anything.
yeah.
And then you just go ahead. And you got no choice.
Yep.
Then we get overseas and get into Africa. It took 26 days to get there. And we get into Africa, and then we made the invasion of Sicily. And inside of 2 hours, we were all veterans. Every life changed from that minute on. Everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, those 88s were coming from the shore, and the high altitude bombers. Well, we used to make the invasion and then unload our cargo like you saw, and then load up with a load of casualties.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's tough going.
Because you can see what happens. I mean, you see the injuries and you see people die, and it gets very real.
Arm off, leg off, anything.
Yeah.
Well, when you were in Bizerti, between the Sicily invasion and the Italian invasion, you told me one time you had so much shrapnel on top of the ship that you had to list it both directions so that you could wash off all the extra metal every morning or every day.
It was our shrapnel, 90% of it.
Yeah.
But those great big 6-inch guns on the heavy cruisers and the light cruisers and the destroyers and DEs, all firing. It was just as bright as you
Boom, boom,
could get
boom,
the
boom.
sun to shine at the middle of the night. And then
Yeah, my husband.
Now,
had a
everybody
farm.
was shooting at that plane, and that plane would be at about 15,000 feet, and then it would explode up there. And down would come, it was so noisy you could not hear. And then, like you say, skipper would, or the deckhand would call and say, put a list on the ship, take the hose and hose it down every night. Oh gosh, it was something. Yeah.
now, and you had to control the ballast tanks? You were in charge of the ballast tanks to do this listing?
I could start a pump on this side and taking water on, and I could take water out of here and throw it back into the ocean, and I could almost see that ship move. That's the way it would go. So fast, that's a big ship, you know, really.
I know it. I didn't realize they were that big, especially the ones where they went out from the bottom.
And so, yeah, some of those pieces of shrapnel were like that. Boy, they'd crash on your helmet and bang.
That's why you had a helmet on.
Oh, no, you always had a helmet on. Yeah, that was something. We'd sit on the edge of our bed. Then the yellow light would go on, so we'd get our gas mask on, get our life jacket on, get our helmet on, and all of a sudden the red light would go on. So away we went to our post. We once had a fire on board ship. We had 2 fires, and we were in the high seas. And the skipper comes out and says, you know, we fought that thing for a couple of days in the tank deck. One of the trucks was burning, couldn't find it. And nothing but smoke, you know. We didn't dare open the window doors. So we got notice, over the loudspeaker, prepare to abandon ship. Can you imagine that? Looking down in that cold North Atlantic.
Yeah, where else can you go if you abandon ship?
Was this on your trip from North Africa to England?
No, wait a minute. No, that was afterwards, and I don't know what we were doing.
Now, one time you told me about when you were on that trip from the Mediterranean to New England to England, you ended up going through a terrific storm off the Spanish coast or Portugal coast, and you thought the ship was going to go down.
Oh, everybody did. We had one man that was on there. You see, sometimes when you don't know something, it's as bad as if you know something. This fellow was a skipper on some expensive yacht up in the East Coast. He was on board and getting this storm. We were right off the Bay of Biscay, and that had a big submarine nest. And we were all worried about getting around that nest. And instead of worrying about that, all we did was worry about our lives as far as that storm. I forget what it was rated, but boy, you could get down in the bottom and see nothing but water. Couldn't see another thing. And pretty soon you'd come out, and down again. Like 30, 40-foot wave.
We did.
While you were stationed in Southampton, did you ever see any V1 or V2 buzz bombs come over?
Oh, plenty of them. You'd go to London, all of a sudden you'd be sitting there, and all of a sudden in would come one of those. I tell you what, those English people, you had to give them credit. There were areas there for blocks that were just level. Those V2s were deadly. One guy in the ship, he went to London, and he got into a cab, and one fell in front of the cab and blew the tires and the wheels right off the car. He gets out and he walks back to Southampton. He wasn't there for 2 minutes.
Oh, man.
Depends upon where you are.
You know, then we were ready to go home after all those times, and all of a sudden word comes, you have to bring soldiers to Norway. Oh.
This is when you were in England.
Yep.
So you were delayed leaving England.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
So you brought a load of infantrymen from...
5 ships had to go. And we got into the North Sea. And here, these floating mines with those horns on, you've maybe seen those already.
Yeah.
It was nothing but floating mines. And all you got to do is hit one of those and you're all through. Oh, and after all this time, then we were in there. And so we get into the fjords, and they had submarine nets across. And then they would open them up and let us through. And Norway was taken over by the Germans. So we would go along through the river or the fjords, and then there would be German soldiers just standing right there with a gun across their lap. And then they were waiting for us to take them over. See? They knew we were coming.
Well, this was after Germany had surrendered.
Yes.
So it was an occupation. You were delivering the occupational forces then to take over from the Germans.
The German occupational soldiers, that's exactly right, we took it over. And then, those people were so hungry. And those,
So what were they eating? I mean, they just didn't have anything.
I don't know. And so we were at the docks. It was a little town of, beyond Oslo. We were at Oslo for a little while, Drammen. And it was beautiful, but those people were so hungry. So pretty soon we started giving the kids candy. And then we started giving them food. Pretty soon we had a whole town there. Then our guys started hauling canned goods by the case. We take it, hand a can to this or that one, all the way along the fence. And pretty soon the commissary officer said, "Don't forget one thing, fellas, you got to eat for 5 days before we get home." And we would have been willing to give it all, you know. And, gosh, there was a lot of interesting things if you think about all of it. We would sit here in the bar and drink beer that nobody else could drink. Terrible.
Bad beer.
And so we'd smoke and put the cigarette out like this. There'd be a whole ring of guys around this. The minute that cigarette went down in there, they would grab that ashtray and put another one down and take that little bit of cigarette that was left. That hungry they were for cigarettes. Oh yeah, I felt sorry for those Norwegians. Boy, they caught it. But I imagine they all did.